Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. In today's video, I am going to be ranking all 13 films in the Halloween franchise, including the newest entry in the series and the end of David Gordon Green's Halloween trilogy, Halloween Ends. This is probably going to be a pretty long video since I love to talk about movies, especially ones that I care about, and I very much so care about the Halloween franchise, so get ready for a long one, sit back, relax, grab a bowl of popcorn, maybe fold some laundry because this video does not have any footage to watch. It's just going to be purely audio related, so throw it on in the background if you want, and let's talk about the Halloween franchise. So coming in 13th place for me is going to be Halloween 2, directed by Rob Zombie. So when it comes to Rob Zombie as a director, I am not a fan of him. I just don't like his movie style whatsoever. It's very over the top from a writing standpoint with how randomly vulgar it gets, and it's just not for me. He's a very weird director. As a person, I actually think he's pretty awesome, though. I've watched a lot of interviews with him, and he's really chill. His music, well, it's not really my kind of music. It's still entertaining. I actually saw him at a concert a few years ago. It was a total blast. That being said, yeah, as a movie, Halloween 2 doesn't really work for me. It is very much so his movie, though, and I will give it props for that. The Halloween 2007 remake that he did is much more so in line with the original Halloween films because the entire second half of that film is basically recreating the original Halloween. This movie is his own story, though. This isn't him recreating the original Halloween 2. There's maybe a couple of similarities, such as a hospital setting at one point, but otherwise this is his own story, doing his own stuff with the characters. And I will give it props for that, but it's just not stuff that I like. I don't particularly care for the decisions in this movie. Michael having these weird hallucinations with like his mother riding a horse talking to him. It's very odd stuff. They don't really explain it very well. Also, just the general look of Michael in this movie. You see him without his mask quite a bit, or at least, with a lot of his face showing. And I mean, yeah, I guess it's realistic that Michael would be like homeless and very like weird looking, but it is just odd seeing that. It doesn't feel very much so like the Halloween I'm used to or care about. I also don't like Laurie in this movie. I'm not a fan of the direction that Zombie takes with her character in general, but in this movie in particular, she's just very weird. She acts very rebellious, and clearly she's a very messed up person, which makes sense, but I just prefer the way they treat Laurie in like the other versions of the franchise, such as the newer movies, as opposed to how they treat her character here, because she does just feel absolutely insane in this movie, and it's kind of hilarious to watch. The strong suit of this movie, I would say, is Brad Dourif as the sheriff. He's a great actor, and I enjoy him in this movie. I think he's the best part of it. It's also, nice still having Danielle Harris and that character relationship and everything, so all that stuff is good. But otherwise, there's some good kills, but I'm not really a fan of this movie at all. Moving into 12th place, we have Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. So this, in my opinion, is the most annoying movie in the franchise. It's the one that I am the most frustrated with personally, because I really liked the direction they went with in Halloween 4, the ending, I liked the characters there and whatnot, and this movie just throws a lot of that out of the window very fast. Jamie, the last movie, at the end of it, she kills her mother, and it's kind of like she's going to be a killer, but they throw it out the window very quickly here and decide to make it, like Michael was possessing her at the time kind of thing, which is weird. And then Rachel, who's a character that I really liked. I really liked the foster-sister relationship between those two. They kill her character off very quickly, and she is replaced by an extremely, extremely annoying character named Tina. And the movie just has a lot of like stereotypical slasher 80s stuff, very much so reminiscent of like Friday the 13th, where it's just a bunch of teens doing annoying stuff, having sex, and then the slasher villain goes and kills them. It's just very basic 80s horror slasher stuff. It kind of loses some of the elements that make the Halloween franchise special. Despite being disappointed with how they treat, Jamie's character, I still think that Danielle Harris is really good in this movie. She is a very good child actress, and she, despite being like a mute for most of this movie, she sells the role very well. She still has the emotion and everything, and I really like her here. There's some decent kills. I do like the final act in the Myers house, even though that is not the Myers house. It looks nothing like it. I do think that's a decent scene. Once again, Donald Pleasance is great as Loomis, as he is in all of these films. So there's still some redeeming qualities. I think the best part of the movie is definitely the third act. But as a whole, it still frustrates me a ton just because of how it kills off Rachel and just goes in a just very basic, like generic slasher direction. It also just feels very much so like a TV movie. I don't know how to describe it. I kind of feel the same way about Halloween 4, despite, enjoying that movie. They both feel like TV movies. I don't know how to describe it. They just do. But yeah, Halloween 5, probably the most frustrating movie for me in the franchise. Moving into 11th place, we have Halloween Resurrection. So Halloween Resurrection is a very big joke of a movie because you take the great ending that H2O had and you just throw it out the window, and in the most hilarious way possible, where it turns out that Michael Myers strangled a paramedic, destroying his voice box, and then that's who Laurie killed. And now she's in like a psych ward, and then Michael Myers kills her off 15 minutes in the movie. The rest of the film is just the Myers house being used as like this set for a TV show where people try to spend a night in the house without being scared by all these fake jump scare traps. And then the real Michael Myers shows up and kills these people, and there's a lot of like POV webcam footage, and it tries to be different, but it doesn't work. It's very goofy. I don't flat out like hate the movie with every ounce of my life though, because there's so many different continuities and timelines in the Halloween franchise. I can ignore this movie's existence and just pretend that H2O was the end of this timeline. Like, this movie, I don't really care that it exists. I don't have to like look at it and be like, oh my god, that's such a frustrating movie. Because whatever, there's so many different Halloween films that exist. Busta Rhymes kicking Michael Myers out of a window, that's hilarious. It's funny as hell. I don't care. I enjoy the movie in its own way. Even though it's just a really stupid film, I still enjoy it. Moving into 10th place, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween. So this is an interesting movie because, like I said, part of it is Rob Zombie doing his own take on Michael Myers, giving him much more of a backstory, showing how he lived in a very abusive household where his father's just a total dick, his mom's a stripper, his sister is just a very like weird person, and his family is just a big mess. And we see how he tortures animals. Has a bunch of these issues. He's bullied at school. So they give Michael Myers more backstory. They try to make him, I guess, I don't know if I would say more sympathetic, but they try to, explain why he's a monster. And, it's, its own story. I think part of what makes Michael Myers so interesting is not knowing why he's evil. He just is, right? He's just this kid who doesn't talk, and he just killed his sister. So I think giving, like, a reason for all that is a little... it just kind of takes away the whole point of the character, but whatever. It still, differentiates it from the original movie in a way. It's the second half where the movie is literally just a shot-for-shot remake, but, instead of being an hour and 20 minutes, it's 40 minutes. That's where this movie kind of loses me, because it just isn't that good in its second half. It's just basically retelling the same stuff over again. We know what happens to the characters. There are some differences, right? Like Laurie's new parents get killed off. There's some new characters thrown into the mix and whatnot, but as a whole, it is just recreating the same thing, but it lacks the suspense that the original had. Michael's like 6'9" in this movie. He's a fucking monster. He's a beast, but he just kind of walks into these rooms. It kind of lacks that like stalkery aspect that the original had. And yeah, so the movie doesn't work for me personally. I don't hate it. I think it's a very mediocre film that is part original and part just remake. In 9th place, we have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is one of the most divisive films in the franchise. I don't think it's going to be the most divisive anymore, but it is a pretty divisive film. I don't think these days people care as much because it's been out for so long, and it's sort of turned into a cult classic as of recent, I would say. But this movie, it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. It is about this toy company who is actually like evil and into witchcraft and stuff, and they're making these Halloween masks using magic and pieces and stuff from Stonehenge, and their plan is to basically have all these kids wear these masks on Halloween night, watch this television program they have set up, and it's gonna kill kids all across the country, and that is the evil plan. And it's an interesting premise for this movie. This movie works as like its own little kind of eerie, suspenseful 80s cult classic horror film, but I don't obviously it isn't a Halloween movie. It's not a Michael Myers film. The whole point of John Carpenter's original idea was that Halloween was going to be an anthology series where there's just different stories all set around the timeline of Halloween. But that obviously didn't turn out well, and the reception wasn't great. Movie as a whole, though, I don't hate it. I think it's kind of cool and unique for what it is. But if I'm talking about it as a Halloween film, it's not that good, and it would go lower on this list. But as its own sort of, horror movie on its own, it's decent. I don't think it's great on its own, but I do think it's decent. In 8th place, we have Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is one of the most hated films in the franchise. I've actually never seen I think it's the producer's cut, never watched it, and I know a lot of people think that's better, so I have to get around to watching it for sure. But when it comes to theatrical release, I actually kind of like it, and I know that's a very hot take, because a lot of people really, really don't like this movie. But again, it just comes down to the fact that there's so many different continuities that I don't really care when the franchise does something different, because there's always going to be the Halloween films I enjoy and the continuities I enjoy. So this movie, going in a different direction where Michael's a part of this cult, and it's, if I recall, the idea is that he was like marked from birth, and like his life mission is to kill his family. That's a cool idea. I actually think that's a really awesome concept. Maybe not the best for Michael Myers, but, just as a general slasher villain concept, that's actually really cool. And yeah, that's just how I feel about the movie. Otherwise, it's got a lot of issues for sure. I wish that they didn't kill off Jamie immediately in the movie. It doesn't matter to me as much since Danielle Harris is not playing her, but it is still frustrating having her character, killed off. I think she does actually survive in the producer's cut, though, but still. This is also the final time we get to see Donald Pleasance in, I think, any movie, period. And you can just hear it in his voice. He's so old here, so it's kind of sad, but, he's still really good in the movie. He still is Loomis, and he still gives it his all, and it's just great seeing his final performance. So, like all those elements, I like Paul Rudd in the movie. It's his first movie, and he plays a very socially awkward Tommy, but I like him in the movie. I even I think the name's Karen Strode. I like her character in this movie. I think she's supposed to be Laurie's cousin, if I recall. Thought she was good in the movie. And yeah, as a whole, I enjoy the film. It's not great. It's got a lot of bad elements in it, but it is unique. I like the cult take. I think it's a cool idea for a horror franchise. Maybe not for Halloween, but it's a cool idea. And that's really my thoughts on the movie. I will watch the director's cut or the producer's cut, whatever it is. I'll watch it eventually, because I do think it'll be interesting to see, how I feel about it in that sense. All right, moving into 7th place. This is my current placement for Halloween Ends, because I'm really, really torn on this movie. I don't know how to feel about it. I think in terms of quality, it is actually still a pretty decent movie overall. It's still well directed and well made for the most part. Yeah, the writing is not the greatest, but the writing is not good in any Halloween movies, not even in the original. If you listen to the dialogue in the original, it's pretty bad, besides Loomis's stuff. So I don't really care that the dialogue's not that great. But yeah, this movie, I'm so torn on it. This is gonna be complete spoilers, so I would skip me talking about this movie if you don't want to hear spoilers. I don't know why you'd be watching this video otherwise, anyways. But Halloween Ends. I mean, okay, right off the bat, Michael's in the movie for 5 minutes, and that's my issue with the movie. I don't mind the story they went with. I don't mind this Corey character. I actually thought that stuff was interesting and really cool. And there's some really solid moments throughout the film. My issue is just that for the film that's supposed to end the franchise, or at least this continuity, this timeline, it's just a very odd decision to have such little Michael in this movie. This film really doesn't fit with the other two. It does not feel in line with the previous two movies. It's such a fucking odd direction that they chose to go in, and I'm still just confused about it. I'm seeing the movie again on Saturday, and I'm hoping that my thoughts will be more clear, better or worse, once I see it again. But yeah, as of right now, I am extremely torn. The opening scene's great. The best parts of the movie would be the opening scene, some of the really awesome kills, and then I would say the last 10 minutes. Those are the best parts. The opening scene, we have this Corey kid babysitting this one boy. The boy locks him in this kind of attic almost on the 4th floor of the house. He is stuck in the room. He starts freaking out because he's worried about Michael Myers and stuff. And when he does break out, the door hits the kid, and the kid falls down 4 flights of stairs head first onto the ground, immediately killing him. The parents had just re-entered the house, and they hear the guy in the closet. They hear Corey being like, I'm gonna kill you, and he has a knife in his hand, so they think that he did it. And he doesn't go to prison, but he is, basically hated by the town. He becomes the town freak, and everybody thinks that he was responsible for killing this kid. And then Allison falls in love with him, and that's where the movie doesn't entirely work for me, is just the romance between those two characters. It feels very forced, extremely forced. She just sees him and just instantly likes him, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it's very rushed in my opinion. I don't really feel the relationship, but yeah, the movie is essentially just their scenes together. Corey is the main character in this movie, like no doubt about it. You know, Laurie's in the movie more than she was in Kills, but this is a film about this Corey character, and it's about him going evil and, you know, becoming a killer. He finds Michael in the sewers. Michael chooses not to kill him. They don't really explain why, but I think it's because, you know, when Michael saw, like, you know, looked in his eyes and he saw what had happened to him, I think he just recognizes the evil within Corey. I don't think he sympathizes with him. I think he looks in Corey's eyes and says, this guy has potential to be like me, and that's why it keeps him alive. And then Corey, you know, lures this police officer to Michael. Michael kills the officer, and then you can physically see Michael get stronger. Like, his posture gets better, and the music starts playing. It's like it's bringing life back into Michael. So it's like the more he kills, the stronger he gets, the less human he becomes. And I think right there, had the movie just from that point out had been like, you know, okay, Michael's stronger now Michael's gonna go and kill people, I think that would have been better, right? Like, they could have literally just had Michael kill this Corey kid, and it would have been like, what? Like, you know, Corey thinks that they're going to team up, but in reality, Michael's just using him to get stronger. Had they done that, and then Michael goes back out into the streets and is killing people, I would have really liked that. I just felt a little ripped off by having Corey be the main killer, and then Michael show up for the last 5 minutes, fight Laurie, and then get killed. It was just anticlimactic. It was a good fight, don't get me wrong, but it was anticlimactic having that just be how everything is handled. Because it is basically just like this 2-minute fight in the kitchen where Michael gets his wrists and his throat slit, and that's it. I do like the ending with the town coming together and like watching Michael's body get disposed of. I thought that was pretty great, you know, watching him just get dumped in like this grinder thing at this factory, or at this this junkyard. That was pretty great, in the music and everything. I think very over the top. I think I would have preferred like if they like burned Michael's body or something, right? Like, I feel like imagery wise that would be more satisfying, watching like Michael's corpse burn. And I also think he should have had his mask on in that final part. Just little minor things. They don't actually mean much, but these are just things that I would have liked more. But yeah, I'm torn as hell on the movie. I am. You know, it has a lot of the same positives of the other two. The score is great. The movie is well directed. Like, it looks good. It sounds great. I saw it in IMAX and the sound was awesome. The kills are good and everything. Like, it's still well made. It's just that the story is so bizarre, and it's something that I'm definitely going to need to see again before I fully know how I feel about it. But as of right now, Halloween Ends is taking the 7th spot on my list. I know it's going to be a divisive movie. I know a ton of people are going to hate it. And yeah. In 6th place, we have Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. So Halloween 4 was, you know, kind of doing its own continuity. In this film, they decided that Laurie Strode died in a car accident, but she had a daughter who, you know, ends up being adopted, and she is Jamie. She's the main character in this movie. Really like her character, again, like I said, played by Danielle Harris. She is excellent in this film. And in this movie, you know, she kind of has this, like, psychic connection. It's more so explored in Halloween 5, but she sees hallucinations of Michael and stuff, and Michael, you know, being that his goal is to kill his family, he goes after Jamie, and that is basically the premise of this movie. I think this film can be a little slow at times. It does take a while for things to get going. Like, Michael doesn't seriously show up and start killing people frequently until, like, an hour into the film. Up until that point, it's just kind of, like, a lot of random character stuff going on. So I do wish it picked up a little bit earlier on in the movie, but I love the look of Michael when he has like the bandages wrapped around his face. That's pretty iconic in my opinion. And the last act of this movie is great, right? Everything with them in the house and Michael going after them running on the roof, them going to the elementary school, and then like the car chase. Just a lot of really cool moments in this movie. And I think it's great as a whole. I mean, okay, it's probably not a great movie realistically speaking, but I do think it's a very solid entry in the franchise, and it's probably the biggest guilty pleasure of the movies for me, right? Like, it doesn't have good reviews. A lot of people don't think it's very good, but for me, it's kind of just a movie that I enjoy. It's like a Halloween comfort movie, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, solid movie. Enjoyed overall. The worst part is Michael Myers' mask. It looks terrible. The best part is, you know, Loomis as always, and then Jamie and her relationship with her foster sister, Rachel, who I really like. Moving into 5th place, we have H2O, Halloween 20 Years Later, as is also called. So this movie was, you know, at its time, this was the, you know, the Halloween Ends of the original timeline, right? Like, this was the Laurie and Michael have a standoff against each other and she finally wins type movie. And I think it does a better job than Halloween Ends at that as far as the face-off goes. The rest of the movie is following, like, her son who is in college or whatever, or university, and it's basically just a bunch of kids at the dorm, and Michael finds them, because this is set in California. Laurie changes her name and everything, but Michael tracks her down through Nurse Marion's files. So Michael, goes to California. It's basically just him killing these teens, and then Laurie and him come face to face, and the last, 20 minutes is their final fight. And it's good. It's a really good final fight, right? Like, it's solid. The ending with her cutting his head off is pretty great and iconic. And it's a very solid movie. At the time, it was the end of the Halloween franchise, but then obviously it was... Turns out that wasn't Michael. And then they remade the series, and then there's the new ones, and you get the point. But yeah, H2O... overall, very solid. It's got some good kills. Michael's mask, as always, is pretty bad in this movie. I don't know why, they didn't just stick with, trying to make it look like the original mask in the other films. Halloween 4's mask looks stupid. Halloween 5's even worse. Halloween 6's mask, pretty bad. This movie's pretty bad. Just stick with the original mask, guys. Come on, it's not that hard. New films do it, and the mask in the new films looks great. But yeah, overall, H2O, really like the movie. In fourth place, I have Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2. This movie is, I would say, tone-wise and visually and everything, the most similar to the original Halloween as we have gotten. This feels like a true sequel. I really like it. It's set on the same night. John Carpenter didn't direct it, but it very much so still feels like his type of movie, just from, a visual standpoint. It has some decent suspense at times. I wouldn't say it's as suspenseful as the original, but there's still some pretty solid moments. And of course, it introduces the Laurie and Michael brother and sister concept. The kills in the movie are a bit more violent than they were in the original, because they were trying to compete with, Friday the 13th and get with the times a bit more so. So there is definitely some better kills in this movie than there were in the previous entry, or in the original, I should say. And the score. The score is probably my favorite part of this movie, to be honest. I love the, super synthy sound to it. And the organ kicks in. The opening with the pumpkin open up and the skull inside of it is so eerie and awesome looking. So love that stuff. And just again, really good sequel. Loomis is again a great part of it. The fact that he survives the explosion at the end is pretty hilarious. And I love that shot of Michael walking down the hallway burning. It's so iconic, and just a really, really great film overall. Alright, next up, in third place, we have Halloween Kills. So I know that a lot of people really don't like this movie, and I can understand that. The writing in it isn't that good. Laurie's not in the film that much. But the film gave me what I want, which is Michael Myers going around killing people. That's really what I want from these movies, and this movie delivered on that. This is probably my favorite version of Michael Myers, to be honest, because he's just so freaking brutal in this film. His kills are so gruesome. It's just him going around just being ruthless with his murders, and I love that. It's great. From a story standpoint, it is weaker than the previous movie, and I do get a little bit annoyed with how stupid some of the characters are in this movie, points where Michael is literally on the ground, pretty much unconscious, and all they have to do is just stab him in the head, but they choose to stab him in the shoulder or the back. It's just nah, come on. So that stuff's pretty frustrating and definitely annoys me. Otherwise, the only other issue I really have with this movie, the mob stuff gets a little... I think the idea of the mob stuff is pretty cool, and, realistically, I think that kind of thing would happen. But the whole Evil Dies Tonight stuff gets a little bit repetitive, and I'm not a fan of, when this movie just randomly introduces characters to get killed off. I'm fine with Michael going around killing... I guess the way I should explain it is it's when they try to give these characters character, I guess is how I describe it. You have that one couple who Michael kills, he gouges the guy's eye out, which is gruesome as hell and an awesome kill. But it's the fact that they spend 10 minutes with those two characters trying to make them comedic and funny, and it's I don't care. Just have them go in the house and kill them. That's one thing that Halloween Ends actually did better, was that Halloween Ends didn't really try to incorporate the comedy that this and Halloween 2018 had, because I think that element didn't really work for many people. It doesn't work in this movie, in my opinion. But yeah, overall, still a good movie. I really like it. I think the opening is awesome. The opening scene, all of the scenes in this movie that are set in the 70s look great. Spot on. Seeing Michael Myers with his white mask with modern day visuals and stuff is freaking awesome. The score is great once again. The firefighter scene with Michael walking out of the house, all that stuff's great. I think that this terms of overall quality, isn't the strongest out of these new films, but I do think that the highs of this movie are the highest of the trilogy. Like, the best parts of this film are my favorite parts of this trilogy. Michael coming out of the fire, the flashback scenes, etc. Those things are the parts of this trilogy that I will look back on and love the most. So overall, great movie. Well, not great movie, but great Halloween film for me personally. I really enjoy it. And yeah. In second place, we have Halloween 2018. So this and Halloween Kills are kind of interchangeable for me. I have a very hard time choosing between them. I think Halloween 2018 is a better overall movie from a story and character standpoint, but Kills is a Michael Myers movie. It gives us more Michael, it gives us more kills and whatever. Whereas Halloween 2018, it is very much so about like Laurie, her PTSD and stuff from what happened. And then they throw in some teen stuff. That's where the movie kind of loses me, is like in the middle. I wouldn't say it loses me, but it does just focus on Allison and like the teens and stuff, and then Laurie's kind of just gone from the middle section of the film and then just, reappears at the end of the film to take on Michael again. I just wish they kind of gave Laurie a bit more to do in the middle of the film. The fight between them in the end, though, is pretty great. I do think this film, had they just killed off Michael there, had he be trapped in the basement and burned alive, that would be a pretty great ending for the franchise. But obviously, they made it into a trilogy, which I don't mind because I love Halloween. But yeah, it's a really good movie overall. Jamie Lee Curtis is great in it. I like the way they handle her character a lot. The opening, just like the other two films in this trilogy, goes hard. I mean, there's one thing I'll give this trilogy, is that each of these movies have like awesome openings. This one, I just love the opening with them at the sanitarium or whatever you want to call it, and then they, that hard cut from the guy yelling like "say something" to the theme. It's pretty awesome and gives me chills every time. And then the regrowing pumpkin is a pretty awesome visual. All that stuff's great. And overall, just very solid movie. Has good suspense, good kills, and I enjoyed it a lot. Finally, though, in first place, as I'm sure you all imagined, we have the original Halloween. It's hard to beat the classics, and this is exactly that. This is a classic movie. It is one of the most influential horror films of all time. It's really what I would say kicked off the slasher genre. Like, yeah, there were some slasher movies already, but this is what really made it a big thing. And then you just got a bunch of movies that tried to imitate it. So this is what really started things, and it's just a damn iconic movie. I mean, even the poster is just so freaking iconic. But yeah, the score by John Carpenter is incredible. It's a very simple movie. The characters, there's not much to them. I mean, Donald Pleasance is like the one performance here that I think is great. And I just really like the writing for his character when he talks about Michael, and he's talking about like, how he has like the devil's eyes, black eyes, whatever, and like his eyes are literally black in that scene, which I've always loved the lighting there. Really good shot. And yeah, just like everything about this movie is just so well done, so well executed. It is outdated in some degree, right? Like, it's a bit cheesy at times, and some of the writing isn't that great, but it's just such a suspenseful movie. It's so well shot. Like that one shot of Michael standing up, or like his face coming out from the closet. It's so great. So it's just a very well made movie, very influential, and just very fun. It's a must watch every year for me around Halloween time. But nothing beats the score. The score is what I love about this franchise so much. Just that theme is so great. And Michael Myers is my favorite slasher villain. He always will be. Yeah, overall, great movie, great franchise. I mean, it's a messy ass franchise for sure, but I love it for what it is. And yeah, that is my ranking of the Halloween movies. Like I said, I am extremely torn on Halloween Ends. I definitely need to see it again before I fully know how I feel about it. I feel like it's probably going to stay in the same spot in my ranking, though. I don't really see that changing. I think that is where I would naturally keep it. But otherwise, yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what your ranking is down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.